Hey guys, so we're going to be working on the next chapter, chapter 3 of our story, into the Mesoamerica history. So we're going to be reading chapter 3, Hidden Secrets in the Rainforest. And you're just going to be following along with me as I read. But first, let's go over some of the vocabulary that we're going to come across while reading this chapter. The first one is interpret. To interpret means to explain or determine the meaning of something. Distinct is different in a noticeable way. A pulley is a simple machine made of a wheel and a set of made of a wheel or a set of wheels used with a rope or chain to raise and lower objects. Mortar is a wet substance that hardens and dries and holds brick or stones together. If you look at a brick house, and most of the time like the brick is like a reddish brownish color and you have the gray stuff, that's the mortar. Stucco is a type of plaster used to decorate or cover walls. Dispense is to spread apart in different directions. Epidemic is a sudden, widespread illness. Artisan is a person, or artisan is a person who is skilled at making things by hand, or a craftsman. A tunic is a knee-length piece of clothing, like a simple dress. And dwindle is to become smaller and lessen over time. So we're going to be reading from chapter 3. And chapter 3 is Hidden Secrets in the Rainforest. Hidden Secrets in the Rainforest. The big question that we're going to be dealing with today, or for this chapter, is what factors led to the development and decline of the ancient Maya civilization? What factors led to the development and decline of the ancient Maya civilization? David Stewart, shown here in the middle at age 10. So if you look at that picture, do you like to solve puzzles or break codes? A boy named David Stewart did. The son of archaeologists, David often accompanied his parents to the ancient Maya ruins where they worked. There he saw sights that he had never seen before. He was particularly fascinated by the sculpted stone monuments called steles, often located in the central plaza of the Maya cities. These giant pillars featured carvings of images and symbols. David began sketching the carvings when he was only 8 years old. One of the symbols looked like the head of a jaguar. Another resembled an open book. What did these gifs or combination of symbols mean? So here's an example of the steles right there. They were detailed carvings. Now, right here it says, what do those gifts mean? Now, the word gifts is a combination of symbols. You can decode it to make something. All right, now, decoding an ancient language. David soon learned that archaeologists were often puzzled by these carved symbols. Many of the carvings had survived despite thousands of years of erosion by humidity, heat, and tropical storms. Still, nobody knew what these sequences of symbols meant. Some scholars suspected that the symbols were largely decorative. Others were convinced that the symbols were forms of writing. Among these scholars was a young Russian named Yuri. I had it. Yuri Noroskov. Norosu. Yes, Yuri Norosu, who began to decode or translate the hieroglyphics. His translation uncovered the true nature of the Maya writing system. Some glyphs were syllables or part of words, with others represented whole words. They were far from being just pretty pictures. Narasu published the results from his research in 1952. Some epigraphers, or people who decode or interpret ancient writing systems, were doubtful of his work. Others, included David Stewart, were eager to decode more. Today, approximately 85% of the Maya glyphs have been decoded. The glyphs help bring the ancient Maya world to life. They provide records of important dates and events, including the reign of kings and movements of the stars. The Maya developed a system of writing that used around 800 distinct glyphs. Scribes patiently painted symbols into folded bark paper of a codex. They created many of these ancient books, or codas. Many codas were destroyed or have disappeared. Hieroglyphics carved in stone, however, continue to tell the story from ancient Maya cities even today. So, the epigraphers, which was the Yuri Norisu and David Stewart, and many others spent years to decode and interpret the Maya glyphs. Why do you think their work is so important? Why would we need someone to decode a language that we don't know? Well, it can help uncover the true nature behind the Maya writing system. It can help bring the history of the Maya to life. It can provide information on dates, on people, and it can tell the story of the ancient civilizations. Now, it's set up here a codex. A codex is an ancient book of the folded bark paper. That's what a codex is. Buried treasure in the temple of inspection. I'm sorry. Buried treasures in the temple of inscription. Palenque in present-day Mexico contains one of the longest carved hieroglyphic texts yet found. Elements of Palenque's history are carved on the panel that form the walls of the Temple of Inscription. This temple was built in honor of Palenque's king, King Pakal. Okay, let me do this. Canet Jobah Pakal rose to power when he was only 12 years old. He ruled Palenque for nearly 70 years. Pakal, like other Maya rulers, spent many years planning his own burial tomb. The tomb inside Palenque's famous temple of inscription lay hidden for many years. In 1948, a Mexican archaeologist named Alberto Ruiz Lurule discovered a trap door that led to the tomb. It took 4 years for Alberto Ruiz Lurule and his team to carefully clear rubble from the opening beneath the trapdoor. There they discovered a stairwell leading down to the king's sarcophagus, or coffin, where archaeologists opened the coffin's ornate lid. They found what presumed to be Palenque's skeletal remains. He was buried with an abundance of jade, the Maya's most precious stone. Jade necklaces, earrings, rings, and bracelets filled the coffin. The most magnificent of all the pieces was a mosaic death mask. If you look at the picture up there, right here, that's the mosaic death mask. It was a common practice for Maya cultures to place masks over rulers' faces to protect them in the afterlife. Pakal's mask was spectacular. Made from hundreds of pieces of green jade, the mask features decorative pieces of shells and dark obsidians. Now, you also know that death masks were also popular with the Egyptians in the ancient times. Now, what are some of the reasons that the Temple of Inscription in Palenque is famous? Why would you think that? Well, it does have one of the longest hieroglyphs dealing with the history of the area. The temple was built to honor the ruler Palenque, and they found a trap door that led to his coffin, and they unearthed many It's just history, the unearthed history, his the skeletal remains, stones, anything that was down there with him, they unearthed it, and that told a story all up in its own. From numbers to calendars and the great beyond. We know that the Maya had a written language. They also developed a number system. They used three symbols: a dot, a line, and a picture. The dot represented 1, the bar stood for 5, and the pictorial symbol, often an oval shell, stood for 0. The Maya were among the first people to use the concept of zero. Without it, they could not have made calculations into the millions as they did. Their system of counting was used by people from different classes of society. Traders used this early form of mathematics for business. Architects used it to build pyramids. Farmers used it to plant their fields. Astronomers used mathematics to plot the heavens. So we can see right there is their symbols. Ranges from 0 to 19, and you would just move on from like 20 and such. You would have 4 lines. Symbols carved on steles. Sculpted steles stood in Maya's ceremonial centers for hundreds of years. Over time, the stones had various uses and styles changed. Archaeologists have determined that the main purpose of the steles was to glorify kings. The stone monuments boldly portrayed the king's wealth and important deeds. Culminations of gifts also recorded important events. The Maya used the complicated system of recording dates using symbols and numbers. The position of the numbers on the stele determined how it was to be interpreted. The Maya symbols for numbers appeared on many steles. Okay, let's move on. I'm sorry. This mouse goes before I do. Priests served as astronomers. Astronomers are individuals that study the stars and charted the skies. Ceremonial centers housed observatory buildings where astronomers could watch the stars' movements over the course of a year. The Maya thought of time as moving in cycles rather than a straight line. Cycles in nature were important to the Maya understanding of time. They accurately predicted solar eclipses. They mapped out the orbital cycle of the planet Venus. They studied the phases of the moon. Based on their observations and their knowledge of mathematics, the Maya used 2 calendars. The solar or sun calendar contained 365.2420 days in the calendar compared to the modern day calculations of 365 and 2422 days in a calendar year. You can tell how far off the mark they were. Scientists agree that the centuries old Maya calculations are remarkably precise and or accurate. This lunar or moon calendar contains 260 days. The Maya consulted it for favorable days to plant and harvest. It was their key to deciding the best dates for ceremonies and celebrations. Okay, early engineers and doctors. Let me make this smaller so y'all can see the whole thing. There we go. The Maya's many pyramids are proof of their advanced mathematic and engineering skills. Imagine building such a structure without the use of wheels, pulleys, or metal tools. The Maya constructed these four-sided platforms of earth and rubble to form the base of a pyramid. Then they covered the rubble with limestone from local quarries. The plentiful limestone was ground into fine powder and mixed into gravel and water. The Maya used the mixture for both mortar and stucco finishing. The Maya had no pack animals, so they carried materials on their back. Pack animals would refer to as like horses or donkeys or oxen. Without the use of metal tools, they cut the stone with stone. Priests had many different roles in Maya society. In addition to conducting religious ceremonies and practicing astrology, priests served as doctors. Maya medicine was a combination of science and religion. The Maya used natural remedies or treatments to gather plants to relieve headaches and to settle upset stomachs. They combined herbal concoctions with various animal parts to cure ailments. When wounds required stitching, priests used sharp pieces of obsidian or volcanic stone and strands of human hair. Priests even served as dentists, filling teeth with minerals from the earth. So, just think about this. For today, for us to build something, we need a contractor, you need an architect, you need a construction person, we need all types of big machinery, hammers, saws, that's all we need. They didn't have that. These people used engineering skill and design to create these large structures using the scientific method. In what ways did the Maya pyramids reflect the Maya's use of the scientific and mathematic skills? Well, they used their mathematic skills to measure, design different parts, to make sure the pieces were the right size, so they had to fit together as they planned. They used their knowledge of science to crush up the limestone, mix it with some gravel and water to make a paste that would harden and hold things together. And you create a stucco that made it look different. So these were very smart people. Very smart people. The end of a golden age. The golden age of the Maya came to an end between 800 and 900 CE. City-states were mostly abandoned. No more stone statues were raised to kings. Populations decreased and farmers dispersed. People of the inland rainforest left for the drier Yucatan Peninsula. One of the most advanced pre-Columbian civilizations in America crumbled. Why? The change was gradual and probably resulted from a combination of things. It is possible that the lack of rainfall led to serious drought conditions. The Maya chopped down trees for additional fields and housing. This could have destroyed the ecological balance of the region. An epidemic or changing trade routes may have been partially responsible for the decline. Or some theorize that the reason may rest in the Maya themselves. Was there a war between the city-states? Did the people revolt? Had the rulers become too controlling? Nobody knows for sure, because remember, only 85% of the Maya writings have been decoded. Maya blue. So you're going to have to look at the picture for this one. The Maya were skilled artisans. They gathered clay and created beautiful ceramic vessels. Like the stone seals, these decorative vases often told stories on their elaborate painting surfaces. Artists made distinctive blue known as the Maya blue. It comes from a beautiful indigo dye produced from the leaves of a native plant. Many other colors made with natural pigments faded over time. Maya blue is remarkable for the fact that it fades very little. What that means is when something fades, the brightness or the color goes away. Think about when you buy a black shirt. When you wear it for the first time, it's very black. And then over time, as you wash it, the ink from the shirt fades away a little bit and it's not as dark as it was before. Or think about a white shirt. It kind of does the opposite. It becomes dingy. It doesn't look as white as before. But what this Maya blue did is it kept very blue. The pigment kept with it for very long periods of time. Maya cloth of today. Many modern Maya women wear colored tunics that are similar to the ones worn by their ancestors. Each community has its own distinct design. As many did long ago, many women today still weave cloth. Some even use thread that is colored by natural dyes. Traditional tunics are sold in modern day marketplaces. So this is a design for the tunic. And this right here is a young lady or woman, I can't really, who is weaving. It's an old-fashioned method and it takes a long time. At the close of the Golden Age, the remaining Maya scattered and their great civilization dwindled. Today, their descendants live in the ancestral homeland of modern day Mexico, Belize, Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. With the exception of Belize, where English is spoken, Spanish is the official language of the region. However, more than 21 Maya dialects are still spoken in Guatemala alone. If you were to visit Mesoamerica, your guide through the muggy rainforest and ancient ruins may be a descendant of the Maya. The ancient Maya were once thought of as peaceful worshippers of the stars, gods, and time. However, their decorative vessels and translated glyphs provide clues to suggest otherwise. We are still learning about those people who populated South Central Mexico and part of Central America. All right, now that is your story for chapter 3, and we will get back with it in a minute.